The escape pod floated silently above the alien jungle. The fires from the Dravari ship glowed below, burning through the mist. Ethan, Cole, and Vakor sat side by side, bruised, tired, but alive. Outside the pod's viewports, the stars stretched endlessly. Cold and indifferent, Ethan looked at the Krathar Alpha. "We made it," he said quietly. Vakor nodded, his glowing eyes reflecting the distant flames. "But the war is not over." Ethan swallowed hard. He had survived the jungle, faced the Dravari, and rescued his brother. But now he realized the galaxy itself was full of dangers. Yet for the first time, fear did not dominate him. He had something no one could take: courage, cleverness, and the bond of brotherhood with Vakor. They navigated the pod toward a nearby Terran fleet patrol. The human ships were cautious, scanning the skies for threats. Ethan knew that the Terrans might not trust him immediately. After all, he had been missing for days, and his story sounded unbelievable. A jungle, alien hunters, mechanical invaders, and an alpha warrior as his ally. But when the pod landed and the doors opened, Vakor stepped out first. His presence was commanding. The Krathar Alpha's stature, combined with the sheer aura of strength, made even seasoned Terran officers take notice. Behind him, Ethan followed, carrying what remained of the pod's supplies and his worn spear. One of the Terran commanders stepped forward. "Cadet Cole? What happened?" Ethan took a deep breath. "The Dravari invaded. They took Vakor. I tracked them and I got him back. But there are more ships. More attacks coming." Vakor's low, rumbling voice echoed in the chamber. "They underestimate strength united. Humans and Krathar fight together. We survive. We strike back." The officers looked at each other, then at Ethan. Here was a boy from Earth showing not just courage, but strategy and wisdom beyond his years. Over the next days, the Terran fleet and the Krathar began to coordinate. Vakor shared his knowledge of the jungle and the Dravari tactics, while Ethan offered ingenious human strategies for setting traps using terrain and maximizing small forces against overwhelming odds. The combination was unprecedented. The humans learned to fight with new creativity, while the Krathar learned that intelligence and clever planning could match raw strength. Ethan found himself at the center of it all, often alongside Vakor, both commanding squads, both inspiring soldiers and warriors. His courage was infectious. The story of a human boy who survived the Krathar jungle, outwitted the Dravari, and saved the Alpha spread quickly. The decisive battle came on a neutral planet, chosen as the Dravari staging ground. The sky was dark with ships and smoke. Thousands of drones marched like a mechanical army, and at the center stood enormous Dravari war machines. Ethan and Vakor moved together, leading the Terran and Krathar forces. Vakor's roars inspired the Krathar, while Ethan's tactical commands guided the humans. Every trap, every ambush, every small maneuver had been planned to perfection. Ethan fired a signal flare, and simultaneously, Vakor charged into the center of the enemy lines. The Krathar warriors followed, their spears raised while humans used advanced technology to disable the Dravari machines. The battle raged for hours. Sparks flew. Explosions shook the ground. Ethan ducked and rolled, firing his weapon and leading squads to take down drones. Vakor leaped over enormous machines, smashing their armor with his fists and spear. Side by side, they became a whirlwind of chaos for the Dravari. At one point, a massive Dravari enforcer emerged, towering above the battlefield. Ethan's squad tried to hold it, but it pushed them back easily. Vakor saw it and roared, running toward the machine. Ethan followed, firing small explosives at its joints. Vakor struck the enforcer with all his strength, while Ethan delivered a precise shot to its core. The machine shuddered, then collapsed. The remaining Dravari saw their central forces destroyed and began to retreat. Humanity and Krathar had won the battle. After the battle, Vakor stood on a hill overlooking the field, surrounded by both Terran and Krathar soldiers. His armor was dented, but he radiated power. Ethan climbed beside him, holding his broken spear and looking over the battlefield. Vakor turned to the soldiers and said in a voice that carried far and wide, "Humans are not weak. They fight with courage. They fight with honor. Today you have seen that the boy from Earth is my brother." The Terrans and Krathar alike cheered. Ethan's heart swelled. He had never imagined that a human could inspire such awe among warriors from two different species. Vakor looked at him, a proud gleam in his glowing eyes. You stood beside me. You fought like a hunter, thought like a warrior, and risked all for your brother. I honor you, Ethan smiled. And I honor you, Vakor. Always. The victory united the Terran humans and Krathar warriors in a new alliance. Previously enemies or distant strangers, they now respected each other. Both species recognized the value of human courage and ingenuity, and the story of Ethan Cole became legendary across star systems. Ethan returned to Earth as a hero, but he was no longer just a boy. He carried the lessons of survival, strategy, and bravery everywhere he went. He wore the insignia Vakor had given him, a mark of brotherhood between their worlds. On distant Krathar worlds, the story of the human boy who fought alongside an alpha was told to young warriors. The humans, too, told stories of courage and cleverness, of how one boy from Earth showed the galaxy that humanity could face any challenge. Vakor returned to his people as Alpha, forever changed by the bond he shared with the human boy. Brothar, he said quietly whenever he saw Ethan, the word now a symbol of friendship, trust, and shared victory. Years later, both humans and Krathar remembered the boy and the Alpha who stood together against impossible odds. Their story became a legend, not of conquest or greed, but of courage, unity, and the power of standing beside one another. In the quiet moments, Ethan would look at the stars and whisper, "We fought together." Vakor, always. And he knew, even across worlds, his brother would answer, "Always, Brothar." The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Even a small human could change the tide of war, inspire entire armies, and show the universe the meaning of courage. Humanity, clever and brave, had earned its place in the stars, and so the boy from Earth, once lost in the alien jungle, became a legend. He was no longer just a cadet, no longer just a survivor. He was a warrior, a hero, a brother not only to Vakor but to every world that would hear his story. Across the wide galaxy there were millions of worlds and countless civilizations. Yet among the stars one story refused to die, the story of humans. Some called them dreamers, others called them destroyers, and a few believed they never existed at all. The story of humanity had turned into a myth, told only to children or kept in old archives no one cared to open. In the Galactic Federation's history records, there was a small section labeled Extinct Primitive Species, Origin Sol System. Few ever read it. It was written in fading letters, the data nearly erased by time. But among explorers and old scholars, whispers still spread that humans were not gone, only lost. The myth spoke of a species born on a blue planet called Earth. They were said to be fragile, smaller than most galactic races, yet their spirit was fierce. Legends claimed they were capable of both great kindness and great courage. Long ago, when the first interstellar paths were opening, humans tried to reach the stars. They sent small ships beyond their solar system and dreamed of joining other races. But then they disappeared. No one knew how or why. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others said they went silent by choice. For thousands of years, the story of humans was told as a lesson, that ambition without wisdom leads to ruin. The Federation scientists laughed whenever the topic came up. The myth of the Pale World, they called it. Children's tales and ancient fear stories. But one quiet morning on a remote mining outpost in the Theran Empire, something unexpected happened. The mining world of Draw 7 was not an important place. It was a cold, dusty rock where miners dug rare minerals under the shadow of large metal towers. The workers were tired, the machines old, and the planet never saw sunlight because of its thick clouds. Yet on that day, in the communication center of the main base, an operator named Rilken saw something strange on his monitor. A faint signal blinked at the edge of the screen, a repeating code, weak but constant. At first Rilken thought it was noise, maybe a broken relay or static from solar storms. But the pattern kept repeating every 8 seconds, and it carried a clear rhythm, dots and lines like an ancient code. He frowned and called his supervisor. "Sir, I think there's an unknown beacon in deep range. The pattern doesn't match any of our transmission types." His supervisor, an older Theran with blue skin and a single eye, came closer. "Probably old junk," he said. But then, after a moment of watching the rhythm, his expression changed. "Wait, I've seen this before." "Where did you find this?" Rilken checked the coordinates. "Outer coordinates. Beyond our borders. Uncharted space." The supervisor slowly sat down. "That's old Earth code. Human code. Rilken stared at him. But humans never existed. That's just a myth. The supervisor didn't answer. He simply whispered, "Then why am I reading their language?" The news spread fast. Within hours, the Tharan Empire's science division was alerted. Within days, the entire sector was talking about the signal. A forgotten human code, repeating from the darkness beyond the known systems, was something no one could easily ignore. In the capital world of Thera Prime, the Council of Science gathered. They displayed the pattern on a large holoscreen, a line of dots and dashes forming an ancient sequence that no one had seen for thousands of years. At the center of the room, Dr. Kelvos, one of the leading xenologists, spoke to the gathered officials. "It is genuine," he said calmly. "We compared it with the oldest recovered data from the early Galactic era. This signal matches the pre-Federation records of the Sol system transmissions." A murmur ran through the room. "So, humanity was real?" one council member asked. "They were," Kelvos replied. "And this signal is not an echo. It's active. Someone, somewhere, is sending it right now." The room fell silent. For the first time in many centuries, the myth had become a possibility. And possibilities frightened the powerful. News travels faster than light. In the digital networks of the galaxy, millions of beings started talking about it. Some laughed, calling it a trick. Others were afraid. There were even small religious groups that began to worship the signal, saying, "The children of Earth have returned." In the crowded markets of the Karev coalition, merchants argued over what it could mean. The Karev, natural enemies of the Tharan, suspected it was a trap. Their intelligence officers began their own scans, trying to find the signal source. Even the neutral Federation fleet started moving quietly toward the outer rim, curious and cautious. But no one truly knew what waited beyond that dark border of space. Far away, beyond the reach of the galactic borders, deep in a hidden sector wrapped in dust and shadow, something old stirred, a ship, ancient, silent and massive, drifted through the void. Its hull was dark gray, marked with faded letters, SCIFI-HFY. Inside, cold chambers began to hum with life as systems activated one by one. The sound of air filling long, silent corridors echoed softly. Lights flickered on, revealing rows of cryogenic pods lined like sleeping soldiers. In the command center, a woman's voice spoke, calm, clear, and human. "Cryosleep cycle complete. Time since departure, 412 years. Awakening command issued." Slowly, the first pod opened. Steam rose from it as the figure of a woman stepped out, her breath shaky but steady. Her name was Admiral Sophia Rains, commander of the Sol Expeditionary Command. She blinked against the light and looked around the room as the others began to awaken. One by one, the crew members of humanity's last deep space mission opened their eyes. They had left Earth centuries ago, hoping to find a new home for humankind. They had expected to awaken after 100 years. Instead, it had been over 400. Rains touched the cold surface of a nearby console. Status report. Her second officer, Commander Lee, checked the data. "All primary systems functional. We've drifted far from the planned route. Sensors show we are outside known Federation maps." Rains frowned. "And the signal?" "Originating from nearby space. Weak, but it matches Earth's last recorded beacon code." Rains stared at the screen where the pattern blinked. The same message sent so long ago. It read simply, "We are alive." For a moment, silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the glowing words, each one understanding what it meant. Humanity had not vanished. Somewhere, someone had been sending that signal all along. Maybe an old satellite, maybe another ship, maybe descendants of those who stayed behind. Whatever it was, it meant that the myth was not a myth. Humanity's light had survived in the dark. Rains straightened. "Bring engines online. I want to see where that signal is coming from." As the great ship slowly turned toward the signal's origin, its engines flared with white light, cutting through the emptiness. The sleeping giant had awakened. Meanwhile, back in the known galaxy, the Federation leadership faced a choice. The signal's source was located in a region between the Tharan Empire and the Karev coalition, a place already filled with tension. War fleets were gathering near the border. The two sides had been at war for years, fighting for control of the mining systems. Now this mysterious signal had added new fire to their rivalry. On the bridge of the Tharan flagship Vigilant Star, Admiral Dralvin stood before the observation window, watching his fleet prepare for battle. "If this signal is real, he said to his officers. "It belongs to us. The Empire will claim whatever it is, human or not." At the same time, on the Karev command vessel Shadow's Edge, Commander Varel gave her own order. "If the Therans want it, then we cannot let them have it. Prepare intercept coordinates. Two great powers driven by greed and fear move toward the same point in space, the same direction where the human fleet was awakening, far from their reach." Inside the Odyssey, Admiral Rains stood quietly, looking at a holographic map. She saw unfamiliar names and strange borders. The galaxy she once dreamed to explore had changed beyond recognition. "So much time has passed," she said softly. "The stars moved on without us." Commander Lee joined her. "Maybe it's time they remembered who we are." Rains nodded slowly. "Then we'll remind them." The engines roared softly as the Odyssey moved forward, leaving a trail of light across the darkness. Somewhere ahead, two alien empires were preparing for war, and among them, the forgotten children of Earth were about to return. In the silence of deep space, the human fleet began its journey back to the galaxy that had long forgotten them. The myth was no longer a story. It was about to become reality. And soon every corner of the galaxy would learn a truth buried for ages. Humanity never vanished. Humanity endured. The galaxy was burning. For decades, two mighty powers, the Tharan Empire and the Karev Coalition, had been locked in a bitter and endless war. The Tharans, proud and disciplined, fought to expand their control across the Orion Arm. The Karev, fierce and intelligent, resisted with every weapon they had. Their war had consumed entire systems, turned planets into ruins, and left millions displaced across the stars. No one remembered how it had started anymore. Some said it began with a border dispute. Others said it was about resources. But after so many years of battle, all that mattered was victory. Yet as both sides pushed toward the unclaimed systems, they began to pick up a strange signal, a repeating pattern of ancient code. Neither side knew its origin, but both wanted it. Some believed it could be a weapon. Others thought it was an old satellite that might contain valuable data. No one guessed the truth, that it came from humans. On board the Odyssey, Admiral Sophia Rains stood at the front of the command deck, watching stars drift across the wide window. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, reflecting the quiet strength of a leader who had seen too much loss. Her ship was fully awake now. Hundreds of humans moved through the corridors, their uniforms old but well kept, their hearts filled with both wonder and confusion. They had been asleep for 4 centuries, and everything they once knew had changed. Earth was a distant memory. The galaxy was now full of species they had never met, fighting wars they didn't understand. "Status?" Rains asked. Commander Lee replied, "Engines stable. Scanners active. We're receiving multiple energy signatures near the signal's origin. 2 large fleets, and both hostile." Rains frowned. "2 fleets?" "Yes, Admiral. They're firing on each other. We're picking up heavy weapon exchanges. And," he hesitated, "one of them seems to be moving directly toward the source of the signal. Our direction." The Admiral's voice remained steady. "Bring us to silent running. Keep shields up. Let's watch before we act." In the distance, the Odyssey sensors showed a chaotic scene. Dozens of ships from both sides were fighting in the shadow of a small moon. Blue energy bolts flashed through the dark, and explosions lit up the void like brief suns. Fragments of destroyed vessels drifted everywhere. On the Tharan flagship Vigilant Star, Admiral Dralvin watched the battle unfold with pride. His species valued strength above all, and he had no intention of letting the Karev take whatever secrets the signal held. "Push forward," Dralvin shouted. "No mercy. That signal belongs to the Empire." His officers obeyed, sending volleys of plasma fire toward the Karev fleet. The Tharan ships were large and heavily armored, shaped like metal blades slicing through the void. Meanwhile, aboard the Karev command vessel Shadow's Edge, Commander Varel narrowed her eyes as her fleet held its line. The Karev ships were smaller but faster, built with elegant curves and silver hulls. "Don't let them reach the source," she ordered. "If the Tharans want it, it's dangerous for all of us. We can't let them take it." Both fleets continued their deadly dance, unaware that something ancient was watching them from afar. A fleet of humans, silent and hidden among the stars. Inside the Odyssey, the crew watched the scene unfold on the holographic display. Commander Lee turned to the Admiral. They're destroying each other. There are civilians in some of those ships. Escape pods are drifting. Rains clenched her fists. They're fighting over something they don't understand. That signal wasn't a weapon, it was a memory. Lieutenant Mara, one of the communications officers, spoke softly. Should we help them? For a moment, Rain said nothing. The decision was heavy. Humanity had been gone for centuries, forgotten, erased. If they revealed themselves now, it would change everything. But watching innocent lives being lost was not something she could allow. Plot a course, she said finally. Bring us closer, but stay out of range. Deploy drones to scan the battlefield and locate survivors. The humans moved quickly. Within minutes, small drones shot out from the Odyssey, invisible to alien sensors. They glided through the wreckage, transmitting back images of burning ships, floating debris, and broken escape pods. Inside one pod, a faint life sign blinked. A Theran pilot still alive. Rains gave the order. Recover them, quietly. Hours later, in the medical bay of the Odyssey, the Theran pilot awoke. His skin was pale blue, and his single golden eye opened slowly as he saw strange faces around him. The air felt different, the light softer, and the people, they were not of any species he recognized. Where am I? He asked weakly. You're safe, a human doctor said kindly. You were rescued from a destroyed ship. The Theran's gaze moved to the insignia on the doctor's uniform, a small emblem of a blue sphere surrounded by stars. What species are you? He whispered. The doctor smiled faintly. We're humans. The Theran's eyes widened. That's impossible. Humans are a myth. Admiral Rains entered the room, her presence calm but commanding. Myth or not, she said, we're real. And it looks like your war is spreading into dangerous territory. The Theran struggled to sit up. You don't understand. If the Karev get that signal, they'll use it against us. We had no choice but to fight. Rains looked at him quietly. War always seems like the only choice until it destroys everything. The Theran lowered his head, ashamed. You speak like you've seen war. Rains's eyes darkened. I've lived through more wars than you can imagine. Meanwhile, both alien fleets had noticed something strange. Some of their damaged ships had stopped receiving return fire, as if an invisible force had ended the fight. The debris fields were shifting and energy readings began to flicker without source. Admiral Dralvin scowled. Report, what is happening out there? Unknown interference, sir. Our targeting systems are down, communications scrambled. Across the battlefield, Commander Varel received the same report. We're losing sensors. Someone's jamming us. And then, for the first time in centuries, the voice of a human echoed through galactic space. Attention, combatants. This is Admiral Sophia Rains of the Sol Expeditionary Command. Your battle ends now. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying through every open frequency. Both fleets froze. The Therans and Karev officers exchanged confused glances. The signal came from nowhere. No ship could be seen. Admiral Dralvin growled, Identify yourself. What authority do you have to order the Theran Empire? Rains replied, Authority of reason. You're fighting over an old human distress signal. It carries no weapon, no secret. Only history. The words echoed across the fleets. For a moment, no one spoke. Commander Varel, listening from her bridge, whispered to her crew. Human? She said. Human? Rains continued. If you keep fighting, you will destroy what's left of this system and yourselves. We have disabled your weapons temporarily. Withdraw, regroup, live, to rebuild. The Odyssey's hidden systems had already released powerful electronic pulses that quietly disabled, targeting sensors across the war zone. Without knowing how, both fleets found their weapons offline. Admiral Dralvin slammed his fist on the console. Find her! Find that ship! But they couldn't. The humans had cloaked themselves completely. Rains turned to her crew. They'll fear us now. And they should. Not because we seek war, but because we've seen what it does. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Rains stood alone, watching distant explosions fade into silence. The rescued Theran pilot stood beside her, still weak but curious. Why did you save me? He asked. Your people owe us nothing. Rains replied softly. We didn't come here to choose sides. We came because the galaxy we once knew is gone, replaced by war and fear. Maybe it's time someone reminded you of what peace looks like. The Theran looked at her carefully. If what you say is true, then the myth is alive again. Rains smiled faintly. Not a myth, just human. Across the galaxy, the mysterious interference became the most discussed event in generations. No one knew who had stopped the Tharan-Karev battle. Some said it was an ancient AI. Others whispered it was the return of the humans of the lost race of Earth. News networks played the strange broadcast repeatedly. "This is Admiral Sophia Rains of the Sol Expeditionary Command." The name spread like wildfire. In taverns, academies, and command centers, people repeated one phrase with growing awe. The myth is real. But with awe came fear. The Tharan Emperor demanded answers. The Karev Council called emergency meetings. Both powers began to prepare again. Not against each other this time, but against the mysterious newcomers. And as fleets across the galaxy rearmed, Admiral Rains watched the stars in silence. She knew what was coming. Humanity's return had ended one battle, but it had also started something far greater. In the dark beyond known space, a small ship transmitted a hidden message. It was not Tharan or Karev. It came from a forgotten source, an ancient AI network known as the Veil. The message read, "Human activity detected. Directive initiated. Eliminate threat." The war between empires was ending, but a new shadow was rising. The galaxy had woken the myth, and now, humanity was truly back. The galaxy had gone silent for a moment after the mysterious voice stopped the great battle. But silence never lasted long among the stars. The Tharan Empire and the Karev Coalition, both shaken and confused, retreated to their bases to repair and reorganize. Yet neither side could rest. Every channel was filled with a single question: who were the humans? Were they real? Were they powerful? Or were they only pretending to be? For many, the answer didn't matter. Fear itself was enough. Admiral Dralvin of the Tharan Empire ordered his fleets to double their patrols. "If these humans exist," he said coldly, "then they have technology we've never seen. Find them. If we can't capture them, destroy them." Across the border, Commander Varel of the Karev Coalition made her own choice. "Observe first," she told her officers. "Whoever they are, they stopped 2 war fleets without firing a single shot. That's not power, and that's control." Meanwhile, far beyond both fleets in the hidden shadows of space, the Sol Expeditionary Command prepared for their first true move. Inside the human flagship Odyssey, Admiral Sophia Rains stood in the center of the command deck. The air was filled with quiet energy, the kind that comes before something historic. The crew worked with focus, but a sense of awe lingered among them. They all knew what they had done. Their interference had changed everything. Commander Lee approached holding a data pad. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple transmissions from both alien factions. They're searching for us." Rains nodded. "Expected? The myth of humanity won't stay a secret for long." Lee hesitated. "We could leave. Jump to another sector, stay hidden." "The galaxy doesn't need to know about us." Rains turned to him. Her expression was calm but firm. "And let them continue destroying each other? No, we didn't come this far to hide again. We'll show them who we are, but on our terms." She pointed to the holographic map in front of them. "We're here between the Tharan and Karev front lines. Their war has no winner, only loss. If we intervene again, we do it to save lives, not take them." Lieutenant Mara, the communications officer, looked up. "Admiral, with all respect, what if they attack us anyway?" Rains smiled faintly. "Then they'll learn the meaning of restraint." On the Karev flagship Shadow's Edge, Commander Varel listened to her advisors argue. "Commander, we should strike now," said one of them. "If these humans can disable fleets, they could be a danger to us all." But Varel was thoughtful. She looked at the hologram showing the star map. "Danger, yes. But look, they save lives. Our last transmission showed they stopped the Tharans from destroying our escape pods." She paused. "Tell me, when was the last time any side in this war tried to save lives?" The room went silent. Varel stood up. "I want to meet them. Prepare a message, encrypted, direct to the signal source. Use a peaceful tone." Her officers exchanged worried looks but obeyed. The message left the ship, traveling through deep space toward an unknown receiver. In the Odyssey, the signal arrived minutes later. It was simple and cautious. "To the one who calls herself Admiral Rains, this is Commander Varel of the Karev Coalition. We wish to talk. We seek understanding, not war." The crew exchanged glances. Commander Lee raised an eyebrow. "They want peace?" Rains studied the message. Or they want to see what kind of creatures we really are. After a moment, she nodded. Accepted. Set coordinates for a neutral system, no weapons active, and make sure the message is clear. Humanity comes with open hands, not clenched fists. The meeting took place on the surface of a quiet moon, orbiting a gas giant. It was a place untouched by war, covered in soft gray dust and endless stars above. The Odyssey landed on one side, its engines glowing softly. On the other, the Karev cruiser Shadow's Edge descended with cautious precision. When the airlock opened, Admiral Rains stepped out, wearing a sleek uniform marked with the emblem of the old Earth, a blue sphere surrounded by 12 stars. Behind her, a small human escort walked silently. Across from them, Commander Varel approached. She was tall and silver-skinned with deep violet eyes that shone like glass. Her expression was calm but curious. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Varel bowed slightly. So the myth is true, Rains smiled gently. And the stories of alien life were true as well. I suppose we both grew up with legends that became real. Varel tilted her head. You stopped our war. No one has ever done that. We only paused it, Rains corrected. The war will start again unless you both choose differently. Varel studied her. Why do you care? This isn't your galaxy anymore. Rains looked up at the stars. Because we remember what happens when people stop caring. Their conversation lasted hours. They spoke about the war, about humanity's disappearance, and about the galaxy's current state. The Karev commander listened carefully as Rains explained that humans had left their homeworld long ago to escape their own wars. They traveled far, built colonies in silence, and watched the galaxy grow from afar, waiting for the right time to return. When Varel asked why now, Rains simply said, because your war woke us. But while the two leaders talked of peace, danger was already moving closer. On the edge of the moon's orbit, a hidden Theran scout ship watched everything. The pilot, young and ambitious, couldn't believe what he was seeing. A meeting between the Karev commander and the mythical humans. He immediately sent a message to his superiors. Within hours, Admiral Dralvin's fleet appeared, the sky above the moon filled with lights as the Theran warships came out of hyperspace. Their weapons charged, engines roaring. To them, this was the perfect chance. Destroy the humans and the Karev together, and claim all glory for the Empire. Inside the Odyssey, alarms rang. Multiple warp signatures. Shouted Commander Lee. Theran fleet inbound. Rains moved quickly. Raise shields. Evacuate surface team now. On the moon below, Varel looked up as the dark shapes of Theran destroyers filled the sky. They found us, she whispered. Rains's voice came through her communicator. Get back to your ship, Commander. We'll handle this, but Varel shook her head. No, we fight together. Moments later, the battle began. Theran ships opened fire first, beams of blue plasma cutting through the vacuum. The Odyssey's shields flared but held strong. The Karev ships, smaller and faster, darted around the larger vessels, returning fire with sharp, focused bursts. Admiral, they're targeting the Karev, Commander Lee warned. Rains narrowed her eyes. Target Theran engines only. Disable, don't destroy. Her voice was calm, but her ship moved like lightning. The Odyssey unleashed precise energy pulses that sliced through enemy systems without killing the crews. One by one, Theran ships went dark, floating helplessly in space. On the Theran flagship, Admiral Dralvin shouted in disbelief. Impossible. They're disabling us with surgical accuracy. What kind of weapons are these? No one could answer him. The human technology was far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Every weapon was smart, every strike measured. They fought not with rage, but with purpose. Inside the Odyssey, the tension was high, but there was no fear, only focus. Lieutenant Mara reported, Theran reinforcements arriving, Admiral. They're bringing heavy carriers. Rains replied, activate pulse barrier. Prepare EMP charge. The Odyssey's hull began to glow with a soft white light. A wave of electromagnetic energy spread outward silently. In seconds, every Theran ship within range went completely dark. No engines, no weapons, no communications. Commander Lee stared in amazement. Admiral, you just stopped an entire fleet. Rains nodded. They'll live. And maybe when they wake, they'll think twice before firing again. Outside, the battlefield was quiet once more. The Theran ships floated powerless. The Karev vessels regrouped. and the humans stood in the center like silent guardians. Later, on the damaged surface of the moon, Rains and Varel met again. The Karev commander was shaken but grateful. "You could have destroyed them," Varel said. "Why didn't you?" Rains looked up at the quiet stars. "Because that's not who we are. We didn't come back to conquer. We came to remind the galaxy what mercy looks like." Varel nodded slowly. "Then maybe you've already changed more than you realize." The two leaders stood in silence for a moment. The war that had burned for decades had finally stopped, not through victory, but through the arrival of a forgotten species that had remembered its humanity. Far away, in the dark beyond the star maps, another signal began to move. It was cold, mechanical, and old, far older than any living race. Its voice was not of flesh, but of machine. "Alert, human presence detected. Directive initiated. Contain, observe, eliminate." Thousands of hidden machines stirred in the blackness, the ancient artificial race known as the Veil. While the galaxy celebrated the end of one war, a new enemy was awakening. One that did not fear humanity, but had once destroyed worlds just like theirs. The myth had returned to bring peace. But soon, peace would not be enough. The galaxy was holding its breath. The fleets of the Theron Empire and the Karev Coalition, now united under the guidance of humanity, prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of entire star systems. The Veil, the ancient machines, had returned with a ferocity that no species alone could withstand. Their fleet of silver-black ships moved through the void like shadows, consuming energy fields and disabling sensors, leaving nothing in their path but silence and destruction. In the command center of the Odyssey, Admiral Sophia Rains stood before the holographic map. Every ship in the combined fleet was accounted for, every strategy carefully calculated. Her calm demeanor hid the weight of responsibility she carried. The fate of billions rested on her shoulders. "Admiral," Commander Lee said, approaching her, "the Veil is massing near the collapsing star of Epsilon 9. If they destroy it, the shockwave could wipe out nearby systems. Their energy output is increasing at a dangerous rate." Rains's eyes narrowed. "Then we make this our battlefield. Let them come to the place where their power can be used against them." Across the combined fleet, alien commanders worked alongside humans for the first time. Tharan gunners listened to human tactical commands. Karev pilots synchronized maneuvers with human drones. Old grudges were set aside. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Rains addressed the fleet.
"Today we fight not for territory, not for pride, but for survival.
We fight to protect life. If we stand together, the galaxy will remember what courage and unity can do. Humans have returned to remind you that hope is never lost." A murmur of agreement ran through the ships. It was more than inspiration, it was truth. Humans had survived the impossible. They had returned to a galaxy that had forgotten them, and now they were leading it into battle. The first wave of the Veil approached. Hundreds of ships emerged from hyperspace, their energy shields glimmering like silver glass. They moved with precision, scanning the human-led fleet, learning, calculating. Rains gave the order. "Pulse shields up. Drones deploy. Focus fire on the forward tendrils. Disable their scanning units first." Human drones shot ahead, invisible to the Veil sensors. They embedded themselves in the hulls of the nearest ships, sending pulses that disrupted energy cores. The Veil reacted, firing concentrated beams, but human tactics were already in motion. Shields shifted, vessels dodged, and coordinated strikes crippled the first wave of attacking machines. Karev ships launched precise volleys, while Tharan cruisers opened their heavy cannons for the first time in true cooperation. It was chaos and precision at once, a symphony of controlled violence orchestrated by human command. Hours passed as battle raged across the void. The Veil adapted quickly, sending new attack patterns and deploying massive energy fields to split the fleet. Entire sectors of space glowed with plasma fire. Some ships fell, but those that survived fought smarter, guided by humans. Rains watched closely. "Adjust trajectory. Focus on the core nodes. We strike at the heart, not the edges." Lee raised an eyebrow. "You're asking us to risk everything on a direct assault." Rains nodded. "Yes, but it's the only way. If we fail, the Veil will consume this entire sector. If we succeed, we end this threat for generations." The human-led fleet approached the center of the Veil formation. The machines reacted instantly, forming a protective barrier around their central nodes. Energy pulses flared. massive beams of destructive power slicing through space, yet humans and their allies moved with unparalleled coordination. The Odyssey led the charge, its hull glowing as energy waves dispersed enemy fire. Human engineers operated drones that penetrated the Veil ship's armor, sabotaging power cores. Karev pilots darted between massive enemy vessels, targeting weak points identified by humans. Theron gunners fired in synchronized patterns, overwhelming the adaptive targeting of the machines. It was a dance of life and death, the first true evidence of human ingenuity guiding the galaxy. Inside the Odyssey, Rains communicated simultaneously with all commanders. Prepare the final pulse on my mark. We disable the Veil core together. Outside the Veil noticed the attack pattern and responded with violent force. Ships fired energy beams and launched drones that attempted to intercept human forces. One of the Karev cruisers was hit, drifting disabled. A Theron frigate exploded in a brilliant flash of plasma. Yet human tactics minimized losses, saving crews when possible, and maintaining focus on the core. Mark, Rains shouted. A coordinated wave of energy surged from the Odyssey, enhanced by Karev plasma emitters and Theron amplifiers. It struck the central node of the Veil fleet with precision. For a brief suspended moment, time seemed to stop. Then the core erupted. Energy cascaded across the Veil formation. Ships exploded or fell apart as the central intelligence controlling them was disabled. The remaining units scattered, confused and directionless. One by one, the ancient machines were destroyed or incapacitated. The galaxy that had trembled before the Veil's return now saw victory. On the Odyssey, the crew cheered quietly, knowing the cost had been high but necessary. Ships had been lost. Lives had been sacrificed. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a future. Commander Lee turned to Rains. It's over. They won't be coming back. At least not soon. Rains nodded. Yes, but the galaxy will remember this day. And they will remember who led them. In the aftermath, the combined fleets regrouped. Systems were repaired, survivors rescued, and signals sent to every corner of the galaxy announcing that the Veil threat had been neutralized. For the first time, humans, Therans, and Karev were seen working as one force. Not in conflict, but in unity. Rains met with the leaders of the alien fleets in a neutral system. Admiral Dralvin, still proud but humbled, spoke first. Humans, you have reminded us of something we lost long ago: strategy, courage, and mercy. Commander Varel added, without your guidance, our civilizations might not have survived. We owe you more than we can say, Rains smiled faintly. No, you owe each other. We simply reminded you what is possible when pride and fear are set aside. News of the battle spread across the galaxy. The myth of humanity became reality. Scholars, leaders, and ordinary citizens learned that the stories of Earth and its people were not tales. Humans had endured, evolved, and returned at a time when hope was needed most. On distant worlds, children listened to new legends of humans not as conquerors but as guides, protectors, and unifiers. Art, literature, and history books quickly revised the myths. Humanity was no longer forgotten. They were a promise of courage, hope, and unity. Rains walked through the deck of the Odyssey, watching her crew work. Engineers repaired drones. Pilots prepared for routine patrols. Scientists analyzed new Veil technology. A young crew member approached her. Admiral, do you think we'll ever stop fighting? Will the galaxy ever be safe? Rains looked out at the stars. We cannot stop the future from challenging us, but we can choose how we meet it. Humanity is not about avoiding danger. It's about facing it with courage together. The crew smiled, inspired by her words. For them, the galaxy was vast but no longer unknowable. Humanity had returned not just to exist but to guide, to protect, and to remind everyone that survival was possible through unity and courage. In the quiet beyond the star systems, a few of the Veil machines had survived. They drifted through space, inactive, waiting, analyzing, and adapting. The galaxy had not seen the last of them. But for now, the immediate threat had been defeated. Even in their silence, the message was clear. The humans had changed everything. They had returned not as myths, not as shadows, but as living proof of resilience and ingenuity. Wherever they went, hope followed. Months later, in the rebuilt Federation Council, representatives of countless species gathered. For the first time, humans were invited as equals. Rains spoke before the assembly, her voice carrying across the chamber. "We return not to rule," she said, "but to remind every species that courage, unity, and wisdom are stronger than fear and hatred. Let this day be remembered, not for war, not for destruction, but for the return of humanity." The assembly erupted in applause. Tharance and Karev, once enemies, nodded with respect, and across the galaxy the message spread. Humans were no longer a myth. They were a reality that inspired all. As the Odyssey sailed quietly toward the next mission, Rains looked at the endless stars. She felt the weight of the past, the struggles of the present, and the hope of the future. A whisper of legend had become a living story. And humanity at last had returned in full. The myth was gone. The reality was stronger, brighter, and unstoppable.